I want to start here because I think the education piece is a little more detailed piece. You heard me detail this story. I mean, absolute tragedy. A young lady, 18 years of age, Belmont freshman, in critical condition, not expected to survive. And here's what the DA said about the situation involving this individual. Quote, this nearly impossible standard, that's what the law is regarding involuntary incarceration, impacts public safety. The law must be altered to accurately balance individual needs with public safety. At the same time, Tennessee must provide more beds and staffing resources to handle dangerous individuals. So he's saying that he was stuck, nothing he could do. That's DA Funk, and that the General Assembly needs to help him in certain aspects of a case like this. What say you?
Well, I think the second part of that about having more beds and facilities for these individuals with mental health issues, I think that's something that we tried to address in the special session, and I think that'll come back up when we get back in the normal session coming up in January 9th. I think we're going to have to look across the state of Tennessee of the availability of beds. Now, maybe the availability of the beds had something to do with that 3-doctor panel saying he's not able to be committed. I would be willing to ask and beg DA Funk to come before the General Assembly and plead his case. And I'm sure that, he would carry some weight of trying to make Davidson and Nashville for that, and the state of Tennessee, a safer place to be. Sometimes it's easier to sit back and just throw things at the General Assembly instead of stepping up to the microphone and pleading your case. But I find it hard to believe, I really do, that an individual was not deemed capable to stand trial for a crime, but then also not able to be committed to address the mental. Doesn't
make any sense.
It makes no sense. So I think there's probably some nuggets of information. And normally when you come before the General Assembly, especially in criminal justice, Chairman Doggett and Chairman Halsey will get down into the details and find out exactly what the problem is. But I think the General Assembly, as long as we don't start trampling on people's rights, is more than willing to look at providing additional facilities and additional help for people. We've done it since I've been up there.
Well, and if this is a legitimate loophole, and I don't know, I take the DA's words at face value. Mm-hmm. But if it's a legitimate loophole, then we need to do something to close this loophole. In other words, if there's a gap between not able to stand trial versus involuntary commitment, then we need to close that gap.
Correct. There needs to be some kind of symmetry there, that if you're telling me you're incapable of standing trial, then there has to be enough of a mental health issue that deems you a danger to society.
Right. If you're and I don't mean to oversimplify it, but if you're incapable of standing trial, the basic indication is you don't understand right from wrong.
Correct.
Well, if you don't understand right from wrong, then I would suggest that you are a danger to, especially considering the charges against you. You were charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon to begin with.
Right.
And I understand a charge is not a conviction, but that should be an indicator that you're going to be a danger to other people if you're released from incarceration.
Common sense.
It would make sense to me. But the real reason you're here is some of the activity going on surrounding education dollars. Obviously, you chair the committee. You get it. You're on top of these subject matters, whether it's curriculum and standards or funding. Where are we? What is the consideration on the table by the General Assembly?
So the one thing I want to make perfectly clear is that there's no discussion at the General Assembly level to reduce the amount of funding. It is to supplant the federal dollar. So basically, where's the check going to come from? Is it going to come from the feds or is it going to come from the state of Tennessee? The same amount of money is still on the table. The question we're trying to answer is, if we write the check from Tennessee to Tennessee taxpayers, is it going to lead our districts for better outcomes with our districts, better outcomes for our teachers, and better outcomes for our students? That's the main question. Does it give us the flexibility and autonomy, and here's the most important word, right? Creativity for our teachers to deliver the educational components to our students and get better results? We've had 5 meetings. Now, I'm not part of the committee, but I've been sitting in on them because I want to make sure I can understand where we're going with this. Yeah. And we've had 5 meetings, and we've talked about the restrictions from the federal government in funding and how it's all intertwined through USDA for food, Department of the Military for ROTC, Department of Human Services through health on the TANF funds that we use, Tennessee Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, and how that all ties in together, and whether or not, if we say cafeteria style, Matt, if we don't want to do this, we don't want to take the money for this, are there repercussions from the federal government on everything else? Can we choose cafeteria style what we want to do and not do or comply with? And then the other thing is,
I feel like I know what the federal government's going to say to that, by the way.
No.
Yeah.
But the other question that's kind of got stirring in the back of my mind, and I'll give you for instance, in grades 3 through 12, we are required, if we take the federal money, to test math and English language arts every year. Science is every 3 years, with a maximum of no more than 3 tests per school year. Okay? Well, let me tell you something. Our middle schoolers take about 11 to 14 tests a year. So now it's got me looking at, okay, let's look internally in our own house. How, if we know that this is the guidelines from the feds for testing, what kind of burdens are we putting on top of the students at the state level? And then what kind of burdens are the districts putting on at their level in the moniker of trying to collect data to see if our kids are on track?
So you're suggesting that the possibility exists that we're over-testing?
Possibly. I mean, when you're taking 11 to 14 tests a year in 7th grade?
No, I agree. I get it, certainly. So what do you say to those who say, wait a minute, this is free money, right? The federal government
is no free money.
Well, I know what I would say. I'm about to figure out what you're going to say. This is free money. Yeah, sure, maybe there's a string or two attached to make sure that you're spending the money appropriately, but why would you turn down free money from the federal government to supplement? Because, if you lose that funding source, you got to come up with it from somewhere else. That money comes from somewhere. That's money that could be spent on other programs or projects. So why would you turn that money down? What do you say to that?
Well, very simply, our job is to always look at trying to make the educational system better for our students. Are there barriers in place from the federal government by saying, yes, we'll take this money, that create barriers in the classroom for student success, that create barriers in the classroom for our teachers' success? The name of the game in education is, after 13 years, K through 12, after 13 years, to have a student that graduates that can read, write, do math, understand science, understand social studies and civics, so that they can function in our society, to determine whether or not they're going to go to a community college, a TCAT center, a 4-year college, or join the military. That's the job of us. We're not doing that right now. And so what we need to look at, and what this committee is looking at, is, are there barriers in place right now that are preventing that from happening? If there are, we have to clear those barriers.
See, and I believe the question, and I ask it in the spirit of a lot of people that perhaps are thinking it while they listen to us talk about the possibility that the state of Tennessee would turn down federal dollars to gain more control over the education and the course of education of our young people in Tennessee.
Or more freedom.
Sure. Control of freedom. Sure. I think we've become far too money-focused in our conversations about education. And I said for years in the state of Alabama, because in Alabama, I think the funding mechanism in the 20 years I was there, it went from about $3 billion to like $8 billion. So it increased by $5 billion. Did not see any appreciable increase in math scores, in English, whatever. And when people would call me and say, we need to fund education more appropriately, I say, well, just tell me what amount of money. What amount of money per pupil is going to guarantee me A's?
Yes.
What amount of money is going to guarantee me B's? Let's start there. If it's all about money and funding mechanisms, okay, I'm willing to have that conversation. And they can never answer the question, of course.
You hear crickets.
Right.
Because it's called my dad taught me a long time ago, it's called a score, right? If I give you X, what will you give me? Well, if I give you more of X, what will you give me? So if you're telling me for every student in the state of Tennessee to be at 100% literacy rate, and you'll guarantee me that, what's the cost?
I'm willing to talk.
But nobody's going to tell me that. Just give us more money. And by the way, we've given them more money. I've been up there for 5 years, Matt. I've sat on education committee every year. I've looked at the budget in education every year. It's gone up almost $4 billion in 5 years.
In 5 years?
5 years. So don't tell me we're not dumping money into education. We are hemorrhaging money in education, trying to figure out this combination, right? What we need to figure out is, are there any barriers to success that are there because of the federal money? That's what this group's trying to figure out. And if there are, then they make a recommendation to the General Assembly and say, here are the hindrances that we found that are prohibiting our students or our teachers from being the best they can be.
In a moment, while we have Scott Cepicky in studio with us, we have one more segment to go. We will ask him his thoughts about some of the latest information involving the Covenant School shooting. I'm sure he has some thoughts on that, and where the study committee is going with all of this, and if we expect any results coming up in the regular session in January. We'll do that momentarily. Did you get me on TV sneezing? Did you? That's great. That's great. Get my back there, Bill. Okay. 125 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I promise I'll get to Frederick and what is that? Marisa? Did I say that right? Marisa? In just a moment, I want to finish up with our good friend Representative Scott Cepicky in moments. We'll get to the bottom of the hour, and then we'll get your calls momentarily. I asked Bel K that because on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, join us on Super Talk TV and chime in on the F&M Bank chat line. I had a little bit of a sneezing fit right before we came back from break, and I imagined that Bell got me on camera sneezing, and he did. Scott, if I had to guess, I don't want to presume. I don't want to presume where we are in the process, so I'll just let you tell us. Study committee is ongoing. You're sitting in on study committee, and that committee's mission statement is to examine the economic feasibility of moving forward in this regard and the impact on educational opportunities for Tennessee children. Do I have it right?
100%.
Where are we, and do you think this will lead to any legislation this session coming up in January, or is this kind of a preliminary look building for further down the road? So
from listening to Chairman Moody and Chairman Lumberg, I think we thought this was possible to do in maybe 6, 7, 8 meetings, and this is becoming something that's really, really big. And the information that's coming down is so intertwined and convoluted that you have someone come in on one day, and then the next day you get another piece of testimony that is contradictory to what you heard the day before. And so I think what you're going to see, is my gut feeling is, this will go on. I would say that probably till we get back into session, and we'll continue on a little bit more. I don't know if this group will stay together or will be transitioning to the Senate and House education committees, but I think you'll get probably some type of recommendation. And what the recommendation may be is we need more information, and continue that on as we go through the next session.
If not this lift, do you expect that there will be conversations regarding changing the way that our young people go to schools regarding a voucher system in the general?
Well, you're full of big ones today, aren't you? Yes, Governor Lee.
That's the hard questions there.
Yeah, you do. Governor Lee has talked about, and Chairman White has talked about expanding the state voucher plan from 3. It was first 2 counties, and then we added Knox, and now there's a proposal possibly it's going to come forward to expand it to all 95 counties. That's a heavy lift.
In 2 minutes or less, because that's what we have. I'm, a bumpkin that just came in from the sticks, which, technically coming from Alabama, that could be said about me. What is a voucher system? How does that change educational opportunities for parents of young children in the Tennessee system?
Well, the theory behind it is if you have a child that is going to X school that is grossly underperforming and not helping your student at all, just because of your address and your zip code, your student is trapped there. And so what the voucher system does is it identifies those failing schools, and it gives the parents the ability to send their kid to a better school, unquote, air quotes there, right? Mm-hmm. Through the grading system, through the evaluation system of the state, through word of mouth. And so what the voucher system does is allows that opportunity for seeking a better opportunity for your children.
Well, and it infuses, to me, and my understanding of it, just more globally, not in the state of Tennessee, is that it helps us infuse healthy and good competition within the system itself. I always, if I'm, out and about and talking about, any variety of issues, I use this example. You can steal this from me, Cepicky.
Okay.
So if I told you that based on where you live in Murray County, that you have to go to one grocery store to get your bread. This is the grocery store you have to go to get your bread. And because of where you live, that's the grocery store that you get your bread from. There'll always be bread there, but that's where you have to go. And anyone around you has to go to the same place. And the grocery store knows that too. Do you think the bread in that grocery store is going to get better or worse?
Worse.
Of course.
Right.
But why don't you two think of the poor teachers' unions?
Are the teachers' unions an impediment to this level of change? I would think they would be.
They are. But I don't think that the teachers' unions represent the bulk of the teachers in Tennessee. I think overwhelmingly, if you poll public opinion on this, public opinion overwhelmingly supports school choice, giving parents the option to choose what's the best option for their kids. One of the things we try to do in the General Assembly is we try to make our public schools and give them the opportunity to be the best they can be through funding, right? And like I said, we've increased funding massively in the state of Tennessee over the last 5 years.
You don't believe money's a problem?
No, normally it never is. It is the people doing the job that you got to get the best you can find. And that's why Governor Lee in the General Assembly, we bumped the starting pay for teachers up to $50,000 to create more competition for those jobs.
This great response from 5035 on the Super Talk text line. I don't think any amount of money is going to make a difference until parents get more involved with the education of their child.
Do you know one of the biggest problems I'm hearing from kindergarten teachers right now? You ready for this one? 4 and 5-year-olds are showing up in diapers. Think about that.
It's a larger problem than public education.
It is.
That's what we're dealing with.
And it's our society. And there's no magic bullet bill for that. It is parents, and parents, I know you don't want to hear this.
What, so kindergarten teachers are now potty training?
Yeah.
That's frightening.
Yeah.
Just some breaking news coming here from the newsroom. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no problem.
This is the breaking. House Republicans are going to subpoena Hunter and James Biden as their impeachment inquiry does ramp back up.
Well, that's great news.
I didn't know about that.
I love that. Yeah, so but that's why look at there. That's why Mac Morey jumps in with breaking news, because Scott Cepicky and Matt Murphy go, really? We didn't know that.
So we're bringing Hunter to Tennessee?
Well, we're bringing Hunter to Washington, D.C.
Well, he didn't clarify that.
Oh, I see. Oh, he was gigging you.
Oh, that's what was going on.
I missed it too.
Wow.
I like that. So Biggie's with the little gig of Morey.
A little spicy.
Yeah.
Education chairman are cerebral.
He learns that you're a Chiefs fan, and this is what you get.
Taylor Swift fan, right?
Swifty.
Yeah.
Oh. I'm just going to shake it off.
Hey, there it goes. We're giving Cepicky some bad blood.
No. You could keep that trash for the hand show, would you? No, don't bring that over here with me. You either, Cepicky. Scott, thank you for the update in all sincerity. Obviously, it's not normally a time that we talk about these types of things, but I want to make sure that we keep the audience up to date with the goings on of the committee hearings, some of the behind the scenes activity that goes on in advance of the general session.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
We have got to have the manifesto and the toxicology report.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, and I'll give you 30 seconds on this. So 3 pages. Some say, hey, this is taken out of context, to which I say, well, then redact what you need to redact and give us the rest. I saw you on the tube yesterday, I believe it was, commenting on this. Just give us your thoughts on it again.
We have got to have, if you want us to craft legislation to help prevent this, right? Not stop it, but to help prevent it, right? We have got to have that manifesto. We got to have the toxicology report, and we must have testimony from experts on looking into the mind of this individual and to help us understand what we're looking at. I understand. I don't understand the horror of losing a child. But if we can glean some good from this, right, that we can help prevent this in the future, we have to do it.
Well spoken, succinctly spoken. Thank you, Scott.